everyone, thank you for joining us. This is CBA's weekly security update. My name is Yunis Dekow. These are some of the biggest stories that made headlines this week in line with security matters in the Horn of Africa. Somaliland authorities executed 6 men for charges including terror. 3 teachers killed in suspected Al-Shabaab attack near Kenya's border with Somalia. Kenya declares war against Al-Shabaab, and Mogadishu bomb explosion kills 3 and wounds 11 at a busy junction. Welcome to your weekly security update program. We start with Somaliland, where Somaliland authorities have executed 6 men on Wednesday, January the 15th, according to human rights lawyer and former chairman of Human Rights Center, Guled Ahmed Chama. The executions were carried out by the firing squad at Mandera prison in Sahel region. 2 of the executed members were related to terror charges and allegedly being members of the Somali militant group Al-Shabaab. The other 4 were executed for various crimes. Somaliland enjoys relative peace and since declaring secession from the Somali Republic and is safe from Al-Shabaab activities, but the region executed first Al-Shabaab members in 2016. Incidents of homicides and clan skirmishes rarely happen in the country, and convicted killers of these incidents face death penalties or sometimes clans agree on compensations worth of camels. And now to Kenya, where 3 teachers were killed near Kenya's border with Somalia in a suspected attack by Al-Shabaab militants early on Monday this week. This is according to Kenya police. In what appeared to be the latest in a string of assaults by the group in Kenya since the new year. A child was also wounded by a stray bullet when the militants attacked the Kamude Primary School in Garissa County. At least 3 teachers were killed in Kenya's border county of Garissa in a suspected attack by Al-Shabaab militants early on Monday. This is according to Kenya police. A child was also wounded by a stray bullet when the militant attacked the Kamude Primary School in Garissa County. The militants also burned down a nearby police station and destroyed a telecommunication mast in the attack in the early wee hours of Monday. Some of the teachers who lived to tell the ordeal narrated to the media what had happened at the vicinity of the school when the militant attacked.
We have a fear, and it is the challenge of the security. We appeal to the national government to take action because we complain on that issue previously. We ask them to arm the locals because those guys they can only the people can deal with the locals. So we need to be armed the locals. That's why they can. At least we can get the enough secure.
They came around 1. Then they started bulleting from the back of the house. Then I think it was the Alinda who was just standing in front of our house. They were just there. They were just bulleting all over.
Al-Shabaab has targeted Kenya in frequent attacks, part of a retaliation campaign against the country for sending troops into Somalia in 2011 after a series of cross-border raids and kidnappings. Leaders from the region now fear the repercussions, which they say will grossly affect learning in the region.
Well, whatever happened is unfortunate because it's definitely going to affect education in this area, in this northeastern region. Of course, there are plans of removing non-local teachers from areas which are hotspots, that is, especially along the Kenya-Somalia border. So it's unfortunate, it is going to affect education, and I want to convey my condolences to the friends, relatives of the affected teachers. Yes.
Al-Shabaab has stepped up the pace of its attacks in Kenya since the new year. Last week, 4 children were killed following a gunfight between the Somali militant group and local police in Garissa. The attackers targeted a telecommunication mast in that assault as well. The United States has also bolstered its presence in Kenya last week after Al-Shabaab killed 3 Americans in an attack on a military base in the East African country used by the US and Kenyan forces. Al-Qaeda-affiliated Al-Shabaab has waged an insurgency in Somalia since 2008, aiming to topple the government and impose its own strict version of Islam. Last month, at least 90 people were killed in a bombing in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, in the country's deadliest attack in more than 2 years. And following that Al-Shabaab's attack in Kenya, Kenya has declared a full-blown war against members of the militant group Al-Shabaab after a series of attacks along the border over the last 4 weeks. The government of Kenya has directed its security forces, that is those on ground, to bring the attackers either dead or alive. The Kenyan government has directed its security forces on the ground to bring the attackers either dead or alive. Kenya has officially declared war against Al-Shabaab after a series of attacks along the border. This after suspected Al-Shabaab Islamists killed 3 teachers and kidnapped another at a primary school in northeastern Kenya on Monday, the latest in a spate of attacks in the region. The assailant also torched a police post and damaged the telecoms mast in the attack in Kamude, 35 kilometers south of Garissa town. Nicodemus Ndalana, Northeastern's regional commissioner, says the government will now go after the militant group in their hidings.
These guys are declaring war. Let them know that we have also declared war on our side. And we'll go for them wherever they are hiding. And I can assure you, and it has started today, we have officers on the ground. And the instruction is that they should bring those guys either dead or alive.
Since the start of the year, the Al-Qaeda affiliate group Al-Shabaab have stepped up their attacks in northeastern Kenya along the Somali border, and Kenyan police have been on high alert. On January the 5th, the Islamists stormed onto a U.S. military base in the coastal town of Lamu, destroying several aircraft and killing 3 Americans. 2 days later, they killed 4 civilians, including a child, during an attack on a telecommunication mast near Garissa. Al-Shabaab issued a statement last Wednesday warning that Kenya will never be safe, threatening tourists and U.S. interest in the country. The group said Kenya should withdraw its forces from Somalia while they still have the chance. Kenya sent troops into Somalia in 2011 as part of an African Union peacekeeping mission fighting against Al-Shabaab, and have seen several brutal retaliation attacks both on its troops in Somalia and civilians in Kenya. This week, Kenya marks a year since the January 15th siege of the upscale Dusit Hotel complex in Nairobi that left 21 people dead. Previous attacks have killed 67 people at Westgate Shopping Center in 2013 and 148 students at Garissa University in 2015. Meanwhile, Kenya and the United States should brace for more daring attacks in coming days. Al-Shabaab militants have warned, adding that they shall target tourists. In reference to the U.S. naval base attack in Lamu on Sunday, the Somali-based militant group said Kenya will never be safe, calling for more attacks against Washington.
The militant group said its attack on Camp Simba in Lamu, in which 3 Americans were killed, should serve as a warning, and Kenya should withdraw its forces from Somalia while they still have the chance. The statement added that the tourists and travelers visiting the country are hereby warned that there will be no longer any safe sightseeing or safari trips in Kenya. Kenya sent troops into Somalia in 2011 as part of an African Union peacekeeping mission fighting against Al-Shabaab, and has seen several brutal retaliation attacks both on its troops in Somalia and civilians in Kenya.
Horn of Africa's security is still volatile. The U.S. and the Kenyan military forces have vowed to squash Al-Shabaab militant group, and Al-Shabaab have warned against escalating its attacks against Kenya defense forces as well as the U.S. forces. Meanwhile, analysts have discussed Al-Shabaab's attack on the U.S. forces in Kenya. Matt Brennan, an analyst at Sahand Research, has discussed the recent attack by jihadists from Somalia's Al-Shabaab group on a military base used by the U.S. forces in Kenya's coastal Lamu region. The jihadists at the time killed 3 American citizens and destroyed several aircraft and a military vehicle.
It's an audacious attack, and although Al-Shabaab has struck more deeply into Kenya and has done much more damage, killed many more people, this is nevertheless, I think, the first time that we've seen an attack on a military installation, both a Kenyan and an American military installation. It is the second time since September last year that Al-Shabaab has attacked an American military installation. And so here I think we might see a threat that could bifurcate or move in one of two ways. Either this is an indication of Al-Shabaab's intent to continuously strike Kenya, something we know that they do intend to do, or it could be also an indication of Al-Shabaab's determination now to strike American targets. I'd be very surprised if any link evolves or develops between recent events in the Middle East, the Iranian-American relationship or dispute, and what has just happened in Kenya. An attack like this requires considerable planning. It would have been in the works long before the Americans killed the Iranian Major General. Kenya has made a lot of progress domestically, but unless it has robust partnerships and unless we see better cooperation across the region, then Kenya is going to remain vulnerable. And it's Al-Shabaab who has the initiative in being able to choose when to attack, what to attack, how to attack, and Kenya has to be able to block every one of those attacks, which of course is impossible.
Thank you, viewer, for being with us here on CBA Security Update. We take a short commercial break, but after the commercial break, we'll take a look at Mogadishu bombing explosion, which killed 3 and wounded 11 others at a busy junction. Al-Shabaab and US-trained Somali forces then up fight in an important town. We'll also take a look at ISIS convict who died at a prison in Mogadishu. But before that, let's take a short commercial break. I'll be with you in a moment.
Yes, salam. Kusoo dhawow qiimo dhimista ballaaran ay kuu samaysay shirkadda Telesom 4G++, 3G iyo weliba 2G. Ka faa'iidayso qiimo dhimista internetka maxmil. qiimo dhimista xidhmooyinka aasaasiga. qiimihii hore 150 MB waxaad ku heli jirtay $1 halka qiimaha cusub 200 MB aad ku helayso $1. qiimihii hore 300 MB waxaad ku heli jirtay $1 halka qiimaha cusub 400 MB aad ku helayso $1. qiimihii hore 600 MB waxaad ku heli jirtay $2 halka qiimaha cusub 800 MB aad ku helayso $2 maxmil. qiimihii hore 900 MB waxaad ku heli jirtay $3 halka qiimaha cusub 1.2 GB aad ku helayso $3. ha u daymo la'aan qiimo dhimista xidhmooyinka casriga ah $5 bil kasta waxaad heli jirtay 9 GB halka maalin kasta aad heli jirtay 300 MB. hadda qiimaha cusub $5 bil kasta waxaad helaysaa 16 GB maalin kastana waxaad helaysaa 546 MB. bil kasta $10 waxaad heli jirtay 20 GB maalin kasta waxaad heli jirtay 667 MB halka qiimaha cusub $10 aad heli doonto 30 GB maalin kasta waxaad heli doontaa 1 GB. $15 qiimihii hore waxaad ku heli jirtay 42 GB bil kasta halka maalin kasta aad ku heli jirtay 1.4 GB. qiimaha cusub $15 bil kasta waxaad ku heli doontaa 80 GB halka maalin kasta aad ku heli doonto 2.7 GB. qiimihii hore $20 bil kasta waxaad ku heli jirtay 54 GB halka maalin kasta ku heli jirtay 1.8 GB. qiimaha cusub $20 bil kasta waxaad ku heli doontaa 100 GB halka maalin kasta ku heli doontaa 3.3 GB. shirkaddu waxay kuu soo kordhisay xidhmada $25 bil kasta waxaad heli doontaa 133 GB halka maalin kasta ka heli doontaa 4.4 GB. qiimihii hore $30 bil kasta waxaad ku heli jirtay 75 GB halka maalin kasta ku heli jirtay 2.5 GB. qiimaha cusub $30 bil kasta waxaad ku heli doontaa 150 GB halka maalin kasta ku heli doonto 5 GB. qiimihii hore $50 bil kasta waxaad ku heli jirtay 180 GB halka maalin kasta ku heli jirtay 4 GB. qiimaha cusub $50 bil kasta waxaad ku heli doontaa 210 GB halka maalin kasta ka helayso 7 GB. la soco adeegyada Telesom. shirkaddu waxa ay ku diyaarisay xidhmooyin cusub oo aan hore u jiri jirin. xidhmooyinkan oo ah maalinle iyo toddobaadle. 12 senti waxaad ku isticmaali kartaa hal toddobaad 50 MB. 25 senti hal maalin waxaad ku isticmaali kartaa 200 MB. hal toddobaadna 400 MB. $1 hal maalin waxaad ku isticmaali kartaa 500 MB hal toddobaadna 1 GB $1 hal maalin waxaad ku isticmaali kartaa 1 GB hal toddobaadna 2 GB $2 hal maalin waxaad ku isticmaali kartaa 2 GB hal toddobaadna 4 GB $3 hal maalin waxaad ku isticmaali kartaa 3 GB hal toddobaadna 5 GB naftaada ku soo qiimo dhimista internetka ku raaxayso shabakadda isgaarsiinta ugu ballaaran Somaliland ee Telesom Maxmil ka faa'iideyso qiimo dhimista internetka Telesom mar kasta ku xidhnow shirkadda Telesom wixii faahfaahin kala xidhiidh nambarka daryeelka maxmiilka 151 maxmil
Welcome to CBA's News Bulletin, broadcasting to you from Hargeisa. My name is Yunis Dekow.
You are watching CBA TV. I am Wangoingoge from Hargeisa. Thank you for keeping it CBA TV. Reaching out to our global viewers through digital and television platforms from our 2 major broadcast centers and exclusive reporting from East Africa and beyond.
From Nigeria, Ajara Ahmed Tijani reporting for CBA TV.
Join us in engaging talk shows and programs on a wide range of issues.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you for accepting our interview. My name is Hassan.
I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Welcome to Unscripted.
Welcome to Associate, proudly brought to you by CBA TV.
Welcome once again to Artflix.
I welcome you to your show, our show, CBA TV News Review.
Our digital platforms engage users everywhere. We inform, educate, and entertain. We are CBA TV, the voice of East Africa.
Welcome back, viewer. Now to Mogadishu, where a bomb exploded in the Somali capital, Mogadishu, last week. A plume of thick black smoke was seen over the city, and witnesses said a number of vehicles were on fire at the time of the attack. A bomb exploded in the Somali capital, Mogadishu, on Wednesday. 3 people were killed and 6 others were wounded following the car bomb explosion in Mogadishu. A plume of thick black smoke was seen over the city, and witnesses said a number of vehicles were on fire. The explosion happened at a busy junction near a building housing the government. The car bomb, which exploded at the busy junction in the Somali capital, has wounded at least 11 people, according to the head of Mogadishu's rescue service. There was no immediate claim of the responsibility for the blast, which happened near buildings housing government offices. The vehicle loaded with bombs exploded at the checkpoint between Security Ministry headquarters and Lower House building in Saidka area of Mogadishu. Ambulances and firefighters headed towards the scene where the blast occurred. The place is also surrounded by government forces. The situation is tense and rescue efforts are ongoing. 10 days ago, a similar car bomb attack occurred at a busy intersection that caused the death of 90 people and injured more than 100 people. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda militant group Al-Shabaab have pulled out of a key town as the Somali government forces moved on the area on Monday last week. AU peacekeepers and US-trained Danab forces recaptured the southern town of Turaturu from the extremist militant group, bringing them a step closer to the full liberation of the entire Lower Shabelle region. As the militants withdrew, the Allied troops secured the control of the key bastion, marking a significant gain for the Somali armed forces as they try to take over security responsibility from the Africa Union troops in 2021. The siege of Turaturo was part of an offensive launched last year by the combined forces to drive the rebels out of the town, which they continued to hold since losing control of the capital Mogadishu in 2011. Lobashowela Governor Ibrahim Adan Najah says government forces have successfully captured the town without encountering resistance from Al-Shabaab fighters. The area has changed hands between the Somali army and Al-Shabaab several times in the past. The withdrawal comes just weeks after Al-Shabaab carried out deadly car bombing in Mogadishu, killing dozens of Somalis and 2 Turkish nationals who are working on a Qatari-funded road project. In the past years, Somali forces have been leaving military bases in southern Somalia region, attributing the reason for not receiving pay or rations that gave Al-Shabaab a chance to make a comeback and gain territory. Al-Shabaab, which is an Al-Qaeda ally in the Horn of African country, continues to occupy large part of southern and central Somalia, despite an intensification of the US airstrike targeting leaders of the group and ISIS-linked functions. A convicted ISIS militant has died on Wednesday night in a Mogadishu prison where he was serving a 15-year jail term. Mahad Mahmoud Abdi alias Abu Yassin passed away after a sudden illness in prison. Multiple sources have confirmed without giving further details about the cause of the inmate's death. His demise could yet again throw the federal government of Somalia into limbo following increasing cases of mysterious death and escapes in August 2018. A military court in Mogadishu convicted Abu Yassin and Mahmoud Warsame of terrorism charges. At the time, the two were close to slain ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who has since been killed by the US forces in Iraq. Yassin, the military court said, administered bayah, an Islamic practice declaring oath of allegiance to a particular leader. After declaring allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, he set up ISIS splinter factions in Somalia, which has killed dozens of people. State prosecutors at the time pushed for the death sentence against Yassin, but the military court only condemned him to 15 years in jail. Abu Yassin is a dual citizen and holds a Russian passport. Somalia confirmed he had fled to Russia before returning to Somalia. Thousands of Somalis hold dual citizens, with most of them being product of political asylum and refugees across the world. Since 1992, Somalia has never had a stable government. The current administration is backed by over 22,000 UN troops. For months now, the international community has been pushing to have the first winner-take-all polls in December this year, which will pave way to the democratically elected regime. Mohamed Warsame Yassin's co-accused was accused of being the doctor of the ISIS group within Somalia. Also, he was accused of covertly moving the group's finances. He was in contact with ISIS leader in Syria, although their lawyers claimed that they had renounced the group. President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo recently said, and I quote, "I will not rest until all terrorists are refuted in Somalia. This is a global phenomenon," end of quote. Somalia's military court has proved to be effective, managing several convictions within the last decade, a record that is yet to be achieved by civilian courts. Ever since emerging in Somalia, the Middle East-linked terror group has struggled to make any serious impact due to Al-Shabaab dominance. Besides controlling sections of the semi-autonomous region of Puntland, especially along Bosaso, the group is largely extinct. Al-Shabaab militants who are keen to topple the fragile federal government have often clashed with ISIS in Somalia. Convictions of the two was a major blow to the group, which has since disintegrated into numerous controllable factions. The federal government of Somalia is yet to issue a statement with regard to Yassin's unprecedented death only 2 years after being jailed. Somalia's northeastern Puntland state has on Sunday announced the execution date for 3 men convicted of gang rape and murder of a young girl in Galkayo town in 2019. Puntland State Attorney General Mahmoud Hassan said the rapist Abdul Fattah Abdurrahman Warsame, Abdul Shakur Mohammed Digi and Abdul Salam Abdurrahman Warsame will face the firing squad on 11th February 2020. The trio have been sentenced to death in May 2019 after they were found guilty of brutally raping and strangling to death Aisha Elias Aden, an 11-year-old girl in Galkayo in February 2019. The minor's disgusting rape and murder galvanized large protests across Puntland and brought global attention to the long chaotic country's sexual violence epidemic. Aisha was abducted at a market in northern Galkayo town and her body was found the next morning near her home. A post-mortem report found that she had been gang raped and strangled to death. Puntland has passed the country's first sexual offense law in 2016, which criminalizes rape, sexual harassment, and online sexual offenses. And with that story, we take another short commercial break. I'll be with you in a moment.
kusoo dhawo Premier Banka maxaan ka caawiyaa
walaal waxaan u baahanahay inaad ii furto account gaar ah Mastercard raaci fadlan
okay walaal waan ku furaya
waxa kale oo u baahanahay account ganacsi waxa kale oo u baahanahay mobile banking iyo internet banking ganacsiga waxaan u rabaa POS
fadlan buuxi foomkan
wala ma heli karaa maalgelin ganacsi
iyarsid
ma heli karaa maalgelin shakhsi oo lacagta waxaan rabaa inaad ii dhigto account-kayga
bangiga caalamiga ah ee Premier Bank waxa uu ku hayaa account shakhsi ah mid ganacsi adeega mobile banking iyo adeega internet banking POS maalgelinta lacagaha dibadaha loo diro iyo waxyaabo kale oo badan
ku soo dhawo mudane
waxaan doonayaa talabaadka ninkaas dalbaday oo dhan in la qabto
haddaba ha moogaanina booqo xarunta kuugu dhow kana furo account hadda
Thank you for being with us, viewer. Now to Ethiopia, where the Ethiopian Parliament on Thursday passed the new proclamation that aims to regulate weapons possession and combat illegal trafficking of firearms within the country. Over the past few years, illegal weapons trafficking has been increasing in Ethiopia, mainly along the border to the neighboring countries, according to police reports. Such illegal trafficking of firearms and the threat it is posing to the country's stability has forced the government to introduce the new bill according to the explanations of the proclamation, meeting international standards of firearms governance, circulation that protect the safety of public and facilitation of legal ownership of specific firearms by individuals, militias, police and other functions are also among the aims of the new regulations. From Russian-made Kalashnikov guns to Turkish pistols, Ethiopia's police and custom officers have been seizing many kinds of firearms from traffickers according to official report. The Ethiopian Custom Commission, which is part of the Ethiopian Revenue Ministry, recently indicated that it has seized over 12,000 illegal bullets and pistols. From the origin of mankind, we go back to Somalia. Somalia is the worst country in Africa for women to live in and the fourth worst in the world according to a new study. The ranking was done based on healthcare, economic resources, cultural traditional practices, and sexual violence. The study found out that Somalia is the worst country in Africa for women to live in. The ranking was done based on healthcare, economic resources, cultural or traditional practices, non-sexual violence, and human trafficking. The study established that the most common crime that women human rights defenders have been unjustly accused of committing in their line of duty was incitement to violence and disobedience to law. This offense, according to the research, is occasioned by methods such as protest and picketing that the women and other vulnerable groups employ in order to seek audience with the duty bearers. In several incidents, politicians and wealthy people have been accused of perpetrating gender-based violence against women, most of whom are perceived to be weak and desperate. According to the survey conducted last year by Thomson Reuters Foundations, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Nigeria are ranked second and third worst in Africa and seventh and ninth respectively in the world map. India, Afghanistan and Syria are the most hostile in the world in that order, with Saudi Arabia and Pakistan ranked 5th and 6th respectively. Yemen is ranked 8th, while the United States of America closes the list of top 10. In India, for instance, cases of crime against women rose by 83% between 2007 and 2016, with 4 cases of rape reported every hour. Worldwide, over 30% of ever-partnered women and aged 15 and older have experienced physical or sexual partner violence. The distinct factors and causes of this high percentage have often not been studied due to lack of data. And to another beautiful story from Somalia. Somalia is a country that has been in the grip of deadly civil war violence nearly 3 decades. There is also the ever-present of threat attacks from radical Islamist groups, that is ISIS and Al-Shabaab. Despite all these, some young people are managing to find solace in the fashion industry. Take a look at this beautiful story.
Somali designer Hawa spends her days dreaming up new creations. From a young age, she has found a creative outlet in fashion, despite her conflict-torn surroundings.
When I began my art studies at school, I quickly found a love for designing clothes. Growing up, I realized that was my passion. I dreamed of being a designer.
Somalia has been ravaged by decades of war, and the Islamic militant group Al-Shabaab stages regular attacks, making life here precarious. Muna, another Somali designer, set her sights on proving that it was possible to inject creativity and hope into daily life.
My priority was to be an inspiration for young Somalis. To show them that it's possible to succeed in their country, that you don't need to leave to do that.
Success means starting a business in the clothing sector, but also offering locally produced fabric to clients. In the capital, Mogadishu, fashion choices are often limited and very costly.
The clothes are often too big. We have to take them to a tailor to be resized. Here it's different. We can choose a design and have a dress in our size, and the price is much lower than imported clothes.
And fashion is not only for women. Some young men are also venturing into the sector, despite the weight of strict traditions that could discourage them.
And with that beautiful story of people changing the landscape of Somalia, we wrap up our weekly security update. Thank you for being with us. My name is Yunis Dekow. On behalf of all those who made this broadcasting possible, thank you for being with us. Have a lovely time and enjoy the rest of your viewing.